everyone. I'm Chris. This is Olivier, my good friend Olivier JT, and
Hello.
you're now watching / listening to a special episode / segment of the EnterVR podcast / YouTube channel. If you're listening to this via podcast, I highly recommend you check this out on YouTube because this is going to be a bit more of a visual conversation that we're going to have. And we're going to stay extra focused today, and we're going to talk about UX in VR. And
Perfect.
what better way to talk about UX and this in this volumetric medium while using it?
Right.
And so I figured we could pick up on
Pillow fight?
pillow. Yeah, we can definitely have a pillow fight. But I figured we could definitely start off with we got these little markers here. Here's one for you, sir.
Sure.
And here's another one. And there's an eraser there. So now we can actually erase if we have to. And so yeah, what I wanted it to talk about, since you're someone who's already published a VR game / experience on Steam, you have that experience under your belt, so you know what users and players actually when they give you feedback, like all these different things, like it's something that I want to go deeper into and explore inside your minds. For those who don't know, Olivier is a creator of Synthesis Universe, and right now Synthesis Universe episode 0000 is out on Steam, so check that out. Without spoiling it too much, I would say that Synthesis Universe is basically a beautiful expression of what is inside Olivier's mind. And you definitely want to check it out. I can't recommend it enough. But now we're going to talk about how it was created and going behind the scenes. And the first question I have for you, sir, is when I'm inside a Synthesis Universe, what is the feelings, what is the emotions that you want me to have? What are you going for?
So the first approach that I had was to immerse you into something completely new in terms of UX, user experience, user interface. So the goal was really to design something where the user want to figure out how he's going to interact with things, what is the language used to have that communication between the experience and the user, so he can understand what's happening and be part of it.
And so you're basically just to go deeper in that. When I'm in there, you want me to feel like this is something I've never seen before, like nothing I've ever experienced before. Like there's no, and so in a way, it's a sort of like this very profound exploratory game / experience. And would you call it a game or an experience? How would you
Not necessarily a game. It's more an experience, something that you live through, and you have a story that is being told through music. And so the one of the very important aspects for me to keep the user inside that universe was to make a non-visible or non-existent interface. So when you enter here in VR, most experiences have calibration, set your height, have a menu, a laser pointer, and then you choose your settings and everything, or you start, you pause, you replay, you go back, and all that I wanted to be something part of the place. So little elements that I have to teach the user, hey, if you look at this or if you do this, then that kind of thing will happen.
And you do it without using text, which is really novel.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's, and
yes.
I imagine that's also really difficult because, navigating a place like VR chat or basically any other VR game / experience, we tend to use text almost as a crutch, and
Sure.
and you're tackling this from a very difficult position because you're trying to create this universal language of interaction that anyone can understand. And are you trying to create something wherein it's almost like a puzzle where you want people to actually think, or do you want it to just click right away? Like, what is that approach there?
So the one of the approach of not having any text is translation. That was the big goal. So you don't have to translate into French, German, and all the other language out there. So if you get as a indie developer, if you get rid of any text that you have to translate, that's a huge part of the work that is off. So there's a production side to it. But the other aspect is really to try to find something that is completely international with colors, with shapes. And so define a sort of language that people won't need their own native language to understand.
Not only colors and shapes, but also sounds, because it is a musically driven experience. And so, like, talk to me more about the sound design. Like, what sorts of, like, are you drawing from nature? Are you drawing from like cyberpunk future? What is it? Are you drawing from like this more alien world, like kind of fantastical experience? What is driving the sound design?
So, the sound is the way Synthesis Universe story are told are through music. And so I have many story elements that happened to the characters and important events that I want to tell. And these, I have a musician and another musician, we work together. And so he give me some music, and then from the list of music he gave me, I'm able to think through all these and think like, oh, that music will be good for that event, and that will be nice for that other area. So in the end, I shuffle all this to make use of them. But it's not, the inspiration really come from a conversation between me and the musician. So the process is really, because I've built so much things. I usually tell them I would like to build that part of the story. This is happening during the story, and he already have an idea of the visual, but then he get inspired with this visual, and then when he made a first draft, I can tackle the event based on the structure of the music. And then sometimes there's a little bit of adjustment because there's a beat that is at the end, and I want something that is more crescendo, and so we edit a little bit, but then it's a back and forth between musician and me.
Wow, but you're leading the way. You're giving him. So if I understand it correctly, you're sort of give him the sort of the blueprint, the template, the rough, big picture idea visually, and he translates that into music, and then you listen to it, and then you sort of like adapt or change around the final product to form this sort of dialectic.
Yes. So yeah, I give him some really broad strokes because I want the musician to be free to create and to be freely inspired. So he has the choice of instrument, of patterns, of musical note and sequence, and pretty much the structure at the beginning. But then the idea is, I want every note, every pattern, every music to be represented into the experience. So once he has made something, then I have to think about, oh, he made that little drum, that little kick drum here. What is it going to be inside that experience? So I decompose completely everything and put visual, and then build the whole animation, the whole special effects, and assign a note, a pattern, or an instrument, or even a track to one particular element. It's a crazy amount of work.
Talk to me more about the design iteration workflow, like, because I'm sure you're working on episode 01 right now, or what the next,
yeah.
And so, how are you taking what you're learning from the feedback that you're getting and integrating that into your design process / workflow for the next episode?
So the goal for me, because this is a very long-term plan, I have one story to tell, but there are other stories and things. So the goal for episode 0 was to reach a point. So first was to release something, so go through the process of releasing and going through the technical requirement from the store and all the annoying aspect and difficult aspect to be able to release. But episode 0 is an introduction for the user, sure. But for me, I have several years of development that lead me to the achievement of episode 0. So during that time, I built all the tool, all the grammar, everything I need to build all the other episodes. So my inner frame is completely built. The language is built. I know how the UI looks, and I have many things that are not in episode 0 that are completely done, and I just need to get some music, and then the tools that I've developed over the years are ready to expand and make all the other stories.
And so do you just going deeper into analytics and user research, how does, for example, with like web development, like you have a page and there's heat maps, and people, designers, product managers, all the above, they look at heat maps, like where is the user focusing the most of their intention on, and so it looks like they're on the home page or they're looking on the about page. Is that something that would be useful for you in VR? And if so, I mean, I'm not very familiar with Unreal, because you're using Unreal Engine to develop. Like, does Unreal provide that, or Steam provide something like that, like some form of heat map to see?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't work that way, because I'm using in a way the language of movies. And if you create any kind of visual, even movies or 2D, like an artwork, you work with composition. So you work with a place, for example, that the eyes are attracted to bright areas or something that moves. If I'm here and I do this, you will automatically look at my hand, because it's the only thing that is moving. So the composition of what I'm doing is completely based on this, but it's more difficult because it's all around you in 360. So the cues are not only visual, because some things can happen behind. So I use audio for this. 3D audio is a very important part of doing that kind of work. But the lead is really to make a structure with the music and everything. So I design things so I know where the user is going to look. So I sometimes use some plays that are desaturated with less color or less detail, and things that are moving very bright, and the audio over there. So I know people will look at the direction. But this is not an exact science, and everybody's going to be different. And that was the reason I did a lot of user testing. And that's something you absolutely need to do. And user testing is not something you can do remotely, like with heat graph and that kind of stuff. You need to be physically present and look at the behavior of the person, because some people will be scared by something, and some people will think it's beautiful. So they are very different things depending of the user background. But I need to make sure that they all understand, and they all their gaze and their behavior are led by my design. So user testing is a big part of it.
Yeah, and user testing involved going to a lot of meetups and
yes,
being in person with other people and watching those behaviors happen in real time, which was
it's completely key.
Yeah. I want to, for those who are listening, this is the part where it gets a little bit more visual. So I'm going to draw something out that I'm curious to see if you can help me figure out. And that is like, so sure. you got an area, right? And you got your player right there. So that's your player.
Right.
And then you got, and so their gaze is in this direction for now, right? So they start out with their gaze in this direction. And sure. And so you only got this small space to work with. And I'm thinking about like, what shapes, like circles, squares, like, does it even matter? what colors are you finding out are most useful? And when you got 3D audio playing behind them, like how do you not let these things get in the way of the other? Like, for example, like, especially when you have a musically driven experience and it's a sound driven experience at the same time, and it also has to be visually beautiful and enticing. Like, how do you allow players to enjoy themselves, but when you want to bring them in a particular direction, how do you separate, what you want them to do from the noise, so to speak?
So when you start any VR experience, the issue I had was if you start in your play area, I don't know where the user is going to have his headset because, this is a physical space. So maybe the player will be here, the headset, and then he's going to pick it up here. And then he's going to look in that direction or in that direction, or this is something that I don't know. So the first thing I did, and it's the first thing you will experience in SU, was when you pick up the headset, there's a little synthesizer that runs with a little LFO. LFO is a sound that is repeated on a loop, and that loop can change in duration. And so the idea was, when the user is looking around, there's that sound that is really slow. Let's say I want the user to look at your face. So the goal would be you start here, and then you will have 3 circles that are going to lead you here to over there. So if I look here, it's going to be boop, 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 boop. And then the user will know and will look at the circle. And then when the circle are to a certain range, I use the value of everything to validate, like if you click on a button. So I know at that moment that he look exactly there because it has triggered an event. And then from there, I know that the user is going to be exactly at the center of the room and looking over there. So from there, I can design the thing in the field of view and then lead him to, here's the title. Wow, it appears and the audio comes in and the lights comes in. And then you have your little interaction right in front of you, just at the bottom, that comes and light up. So I know it's going to be in the field of view, and then I can lead the way from a starting point to an end.
No, that's really clever. That is really clever, and because we are doing something that strays away from convention. Like a lot of VR games, they just use arrows, and they're like, go look at that thing, look at that thing. But you're using this like...
If you look at VR chat, for example, when you put the headset on, you put it on, and then you have the menu that is somewhere, right? And then it asks you for your login or welcome to VR chat, but you're like, okay, where's the menu? Empty space, oh, here's something, right? So I'm using like audio cue and visual cue to tell you, this way, look here, and constantly doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's VR chat and a lot of other experiences are trying to use familiarity. Like, oh, I'm very familiar with like a flat plane that says world, avatar, social, and it highlights with the laser pointer. But no, you're going...
The thing that I hate.
Yeah, which is difficult because you're creating something that has to be universal, and yet no one has seen before, right? Like you're trying to, and in the span of like however long they want to spend, they're going to spend their time in there. You need to teach them this whole new language of interaction, which is not an easy feat.
No. And the other aspect that I really wanted to get rid of was, for example, I guess you have index controller or
Oculus I got the index. Yeah.
So if I tell you press A button, you have no idea, right? Press X. Yeah. You have no idea. You have to take off your headset.
I literally had to look.
Or in game, sometimes you look at your controller and then it highlights. And for me, that takes you completely off from the reality you want to create. So not using any button is key to that, or making it really smart. If you demo to your grandparent or whatever, and they don't even know what a gamepad is, and you say, hey, press X. What? Press the trigger. What? And then you have to explain them, take their hands, show them physically, be here, or they cannot do anything.
what is so that's interesting. And so like in the talk to me more about what VR brings to the table for SU that regular pancake mode can't do for you right now. Like, what is it about VR for you that like? And I'm sure this is something that we might have touched on like years ago in our first episode, but let's revisit that question. What is it
Sure.
so far after all these years you're discovering or rediscovering or you're reinforcing that VR brings to the table that you can't do on pancake mode?
So it's completely the feeling of immersion and being there, being surrounded by a place and being able to walk around and have the physicality of it, being able to walk and have look at things around and being really in control of the view is one. The second one is, of course, related to that is the sense of scale and depth, and the lovely parallax that you can get if you just move like this and you have the plants. It completely gives you a sense of depth. And the last thing that is probably not the most important one is really 3D audio, because if you are 3D audio, you need some headphones that are head tracked. And if you look at your screen, flat screen, and you have a headphone that is tracked through track AR or that kind of stuff, and if you want to look on the side, then you don't see your screen anymore. So the feeling of having an audio behind you, just some sound, some hint, some sound that flying over is really, it's a really a new way to experience music. Because the thing about SU is really about music. It's a musical civilization, and I really wanted to have music that has physicality, space, location, and really that sense of surrounding you, not you listening to stereo music or things like that.
Yeah, it must be really interesting. And going back to interaction design, it must be really interesting to come up with this visual language, because it's something that's stuck with me just now was how you were using sound to guide people, and
Sure.
and so I'm wondering also how you've used animation. Like these days I'm used to like seeing those like wheel menus where like it's like sort of like it starts here and then it loads up and then you're just sort of watching it load and like, but
Yeah.
how do you, for example, translate that into SU? Like how do you, like, and how many iterations did you go through? Like, because I'm sure you were watching
A
people,
lot.
yeah, like you're watching people in real time try it out, and maybe they weren't getting it. Can you talk about some of those challenges?
Sure. So when you design any kind of experience, if you relate to how you are going to start an event, and an event would be user triggered. So something that you want the user to do, but you want to make sure he did it on purpose. And that's very easy with a button, because you can tell him to press A, and then you have the event of pressing A, you know exactly that he did it, or the double click or stuff like that, or please press A for 3 seconds. So that's the thing that I needed to emulate to make sure, for example, if I have a button I want the user to be looking at some specific spot, he can just gaze over, and if he gaze over and trigger the thing, he will look over there and the thing will be triggered. So he's completely gonna miss anything. So SU is mostly gaze based. So you have that kind of, imagine like you have a sort of laser pointer attached to your head. So when you look at some things, I have to make sure that this thing reacts fast and very obviously to the user. So when he look at them, boop, there's something happening. Oh, I look at that, and it has moved, it has shine, and there's little particle effect that give you a sense of animation. And once I have captured that gaze, I design other elements to tell him, oh, now that you see that you can interact with this, please look at me longer. Look at me longer until this is triggered, right? So, for example, in the the interaction that I have for I'm not sure if the camera is going to be able to see the ground. So I'm going to design
I could
here.
see it. Uh-huh.
So I want the user to press a button. It's going to be a play button, So I use a common symbol like the arrow that everybody knows. And that button has, a sort of highlight, and it's shut down right now. So the user is going to look at here, this way, this direction. The user is right here. So when he look at this, immediately the thing begin to highlight, and then it rise when you continue to look at it. And because it rise with the audio and a certain level, I know that I want the user to be able to have the play button to be here. So he look at it, it goes and it validates. And when it's validated, it come back, and then I know that the user really wanted to press that play button in a way.
And you know what's interesting? Sorry to interrupt, but you know what's interesting is when that happens, and you take your gaze away, the play button drops. And so you're sort of like thinking, oh, hey, it dropped. Let me look at it again. It's picking up again. I mean, I'm gonna follow it now because every time I move my gaze away, it's moving, it's doing something. And so
absolutely. And the other aspect is time. So when all the interaction that I use probably something like 3 seconds. So when the user is used, I'm trying to get the user know that lapse of time, 3 seconds, is standard for interaction. So if he has to look at something, a creature or something that is in the background, maybe if he look at it like 3 seconds, he will have a reward, that kind of stuff.
Wow. Olivier, I think we had a really good conversation here. I think we're going to start bringing things down to a close. This is a quick segment of just user interaction, user experience, and with Olivier, the living legend, the creator of Synthesis Universe. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much for being on this a special segment / episode. If people really want more of this, we'll keep making them, and hopefully you can come back and we'll talk even more about
Sure. Thank you.
Your beautiful mind that you were expressing into the metaverse. How can people stay in touch, and how can people follow up with what you're doing these days?
So I'm especially live on Twitter, Olivier JT _SU. But I'm always, my DM are open. So if anybody want to talk to me or ask me question about UI or anything, I'm always ready to share the knowledge. And it's a pleasure to talk to you about all this. So thank you for the invitation, and I hope people will find this interesting and indeed want more. Because the difficult part is there's still many things to be done in VR, and that language to become universal, and then people can make their own content based on the knowledge of the other, not starting from scratch.
And it's exciting because we're watching it right here unfold in front of us, like with you and all the thousands. Would you say there's thousands of VR developers now? I would say there's at least a couple thousand VR developers.
Probably, but the community over the years has thinned down.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, but you're still charting this new medium, and it's still in this, like, I would say it's like this new stage of the brave new world, but it's definitely new still. And you're definitely charting the uncharted, which is awesome. I really appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll catch you at the next one.